I told you guys we needed to watch what happens in June, at the end of June with this monthly candle close. Moving into July, we're going to get into where we think the market is at right now. You've got MicroStrategy offloading the most Bitcoin in its history. Bank for International Settlements talking about blockchain consensus mechanisms and a lot more to hop into. But I think the entire purpose of this video is kind of hold steady. So it's the title that I have on here. It's not just some sort of cliche term I'm trying to say. The entire point is you should have a plan now. You should have had a plan 6 months ago, and you should have a plan 6 months to a year from now as well, with all the prevailing narratives that go on in crypto, especially in certain communities, about becoming essentially rich overnight and some magical private price points that, apparently all of the world's enterprise and institutions have agreed on, and we're all just going to be millionaires. That's all fine and great, but if that doesn't happen, do you have a plan? If that does happen, do you have a plan? Like, we're literally at kind of this point right now, and I bring up this stat all the time, where obviously crypto is heavily manipulated. Everything excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum has never even broken above a $1.2 trillion market cap. You have multiple individual companies that are talking about and actively integrating crypto as a technology and kind of an infrastructure, a part of the stack. And yet crypto as an asset class is still sitting underneath the valuation of like individual companies, which is just stupid. So you guys know what I do. I don't really look at all of these other crypto asset prices, because I believe that, at least for now, crypto is still determined essentially by what Bitcoin decides to do up or down. I don't believe that that's the case forever, but I do believe that that's the case right now. And I think historically there's a good precedent for that. But I've been talking about where are we at? And I told you guys back in February, essentially, I started dollar cost averaging back into crypto. That's the personal plan that I had. And you should have a plan for yourselves. No matter if the market's up or down, I kind of just like the set it and forget it thing. And then if prices start really running and going up again, I will just turn off auto buys on what I've decided to buy, because that's normally when emotion gets into this space. Just like emotion is in this space right now. Like, how many people are on social media, or number one, how many people, a good telltale sign of where we could be at is just the views in general. And I'm not talking about those that just bought their views and make it appear like 40 or 50,000 people are watching their video that has some sort of a crazy prediction. Most of that is paid for bots and very high engagement to pay for areas, or very low amounts of money that you have to pay to get that engagement. I'm talking about, like, most people that are real people have checked out right now. So that is kind of telltale sign number one. Telltale sign number two is people talking about crazy drops in prices after we've already had crazy drops in prices. I'm talking about people that are calling right now for Bitcoin, and maybe this does happen. Who knows? Anything's possible. For Bitcoin to drop down to, I saw somebody say the other day, like $10,000 or $15,000 per BTC. Now, I don't hold any Bitcoin. I hold, a lot of other cryptos. But if Bitcoin dropped to 10 or 15,000 BTC, I wonder if I would like try to back the truck up and buy some Bitcoin. But long story short, it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't really matter to you where we're at right now. You should have a plan either way. Now, I did videos at the beginning of June saying this could potentially have been the double bottom in June. Now, it doesn't look as convincing on the monthly, which is obviously zoomed out, as it does on the weekly. If you pull up the weekly chart for Bitcoin, you start pulling like percent drawdowns and everything else of where we've been at. And obviously, we had a giant capitulation wick back in February. This is probably right around the time I told you guys so much fear, I started kind of eking my way back into crypto. And this is coming from me. I don't buy a ton of crypto anymore, but eking my way back in. And now we were kind of at that same point right now. Now, this being said, I also went on to say in that video last week, if you'd really do some time studies here, there's some things that kind of, I feel like might be a little bit fishy with this too. So, and mainly it's this 17 months to the bottom prior to the halving. So you essentially take BTC's halving, you count back, I'm pretty sure it's almost exactly 17 months each time. And that's pretty much when our bottom has hit in, and we are not at 17 months prior to having. That would put us in, I think, October to November timeframe. Anyways, we are close, and you should have a plan whether we've already bottomed or whether we haven't bottomed. If you look historically, no matter which of those two scenarios we are at right now, and this is not financial advice, but if you look historically at when price action, let's say, for example, on the monthly has been below the 50 EMA, which is this blue line, you can count how each of these candle bodies is a month. Count how many months in the history of just Bitcoin alone has price action been below those candle bodies. This is probably, if you actually go on to the all-time history index, it's going to give you a more accurate picture. It's not very many, right? We're there right now below this blue line, which is the 50 EMA. And yeah, figure it out. And again, total 3, and you don't even have to have like a paid subscription on TradingView. Everything, I'm just going to keep drowning or beating the dead horse here. Everything excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum has never broken above 1.2 trillion. You want to talk about like manipulation? I am just convinced that that is a stupid statistic. And you can see we tried battling it in 2021, November. We tried battling it in December of 2024. We tried battling it in October of 2025. And here we are. So regardless of what's going on with price action, and again, this is not financial advice, but I would say that this is a pretty ridiculous opportunity, assuming what has happened throughout history has stayed. And, you know, I'm not picking up Bitcoin, but I'm looking at other cryptos right now because of where Bitcoin's at, is kind of the thesis. And this is the exact period of time too, like as another sidebar here, this is the period of time where nobody's asking me about crypto in my normal life. You know, there's normally like back here, you know, April of 2024, you know, when Bitcoin was above 100K, you can't even imagine how many people are like, oh, you know, how's your crypto doing? Like, what's going on with crypto? Should I buy Bitcoin? And I'm like, probably not, because Bitcoin's over $100,000. You shouldn't buy probably any crypto right now, because it's all probably going to, I should say it this way. You can make money. There's opportunities whether prices are up or down. I don't do the trading thing. So I don't short crypto. I don't even do leverage longs. I try to accumulate crypto. And the way I kind of look at assets and investing in general maybe is a little bit different than most people. Like, I literally will only invest as much as I'm willing to lose completely. And I really won't sell it unless I need to sell it. So I kind of just try to accumulate what I want to accumulate. If I feel like there's better opportunities somewhere else, then yes, I will probably trade into something else. But it's not like selling it to pay for like my electric bill, or selling it to like pay for groceries or whatever. I don't think you should even really be investing if you need to try to make money to pay for living, if that makes any sense. You should really only be investing if you have extra money that you can just lose entirely. So that's kind of the thesis that I've taken with crypto. This is, again, why I don't. Most of crypto is total nonsense. 98% of it is nonsense anyways. And even the 90% of it, or 10% of it that isn't nonsense, you got to think about how many failed companies there are, how many failed ecosystems there will be. Like, there's a reason why, like what Betamax didn't win the VHS versus Betamax wars, right? It might have been the better technology, but nobody gave a shit because distribution was king, and it was just much easier to get VHS widespread. I don't know why I'm bringing up the VHS example. I still watch VHS in 2026. But anyways, long story short, yeah, I just look at crypto as super high risk. Most of it is nonsense. I don't buy a ton of it anymore, but you should have a plan regardless. And most of this space is just trying to get your attention to go look at shiny objects, you know. And then if you overinvest, you start getting into this self-confirmation bias, like where logic goes entirely out the window, and you have to start believing in crazy conspiracy theories or whatever else it may be, because it's the only way that you can fall asleep at night, because you're so leveraged into one thing that you have to make it okay for yourself. And that's just like not healthy either. So anyways, make your own plans, do whatever you want to do. But I'm just telling you, after being here since, almost a decade, that I'm still here in crypto. There are people 1000% that have done way better than I have, both from an engagement standpoint and trying to basically just do these YouTube videos or doing whatever it is that makes people money. But I have kind of tried to go with what I feel like is the sustainable path, and just like, again, sticking to stupid rules, which are like, I'm happy to have the little bit of crypto that I have. I'm happy to try to work in crypto. I'm happy to do this as a hobby and try to do these videos. I'm still happy to deep dive and stuff like, but everybody's got a different plan, and every single person is totally different than every other person's situation. So I just feel like we're in a pretty ridiculous opportunity right now for the crypto markets as a whole, mainly because of how dead social media is. And secondly, because you start seeing people talk for crazy lows. And again, not saying that we did double bottom, but I was mentioning that in June that potentially was, kind of this double bottoming moment. And if not, I wouldn't be surprised if this 17 months prior to I wouldn't be surprised if this year, I would say in a broader sense, and maybe it's still yet to come, the bottom hits us. If we look across the broader crypto space, obviously tokenization still really ramping up. Tokenized stocks volume on Solana explodes past 5.77 billion. That's just in Q2 of 2026 alone. Some of you guys might have seen Ripple secured a full MiCA CASP license, unlocking regulated crypto services across 30 European countries. Ondo debuted, this was a few days ago, the first U.S. custodial tokenized securities on Ethereum with BlackRock, IVV, and Micron. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I love doing these things. I've done a bunch of them in Hedera. Was able to host an incubator showcase with Solana Incubator. Huge shout out to Iman and Solana Labs for helping to coordinate and get all these guests together, because it does a lot of work to get a bunch of guests together. But I always love doing interviews where there's multiple guests. You've got like 1, 2, 3, you have 5 different incubated projects, where I do feel like it's super nice to see this, because I think a lot of the times in crypto, you guys don't really see this end of the crypto industry, I don't think, so much. But you see a lot of these, like, obviously hackathons, and you see accelerators, and then you could say incubators are kind of like accelerator 2.0. But almost entirely what you see is kind of these digital incubators or digital accelerators, where everything's happening like via Google Meet or Skype or Zoom or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, I think that still in-person workshops and all the other stuff in collaboration is so important for cultivating startups that have a chance at like real success and real. I think the goal here that Iman said in the first interview, I did an interview with him like a month ago, reached out, and then he said he wanted to do one. So this is how this spun up. He said that they're obviously looking for like unicorns. So they're looking for billion-dollar startups out of the Solana ecosystem. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go and check that out. Also, huge shout out to Franklin Templeton using one of the shorts. I actually made this short. I did an interview with Franklin Templeton's they have a new arm of Franklin Templeton called Franklin Crypto. And Chris Perkins is the head of Franklin Crypto. And I told you guys I did this interview, but huge shout out to them for posting this short and giving us a tag and everything else. And thank you, Chris, and to the Franklin Templeton digital assets team and everybody else involved with this. But this short got a lot of traction. Maybe I'll play this real quick for you guys, just because I think it is telling with where we are, where we're heading here. All right.
You said 30 billion, like you sneeze and that comes out in traditional markets. You're going to see it go slowly, crabbing along. And then all at once, vertical. Tokenized markets are just better markets. Once you cross that liquidity threshold where I can trade either one, I need to trade the tokenized asset. Markets are going to completely tokenize in the coming years. I don't understand this like $5 trillion number that Citi throws out, because to me, it's going to trot along, and then all of a sudden everything tokenizes. Back in the day, Bund futures, they were traded in the pit, and guys much taller than me would be, fighting over bid and offer. And then Deutsche Börse, behind the scenes, Eurex developed electronification. And then all of a sudden, that liquidity is shifted across. Institutions are so scared right now. Tokenization is electronification 2.0.
So I thought that was a cool short. Bank for International Settlements, as we ramp down here, puts out a document on blockchain consensus mechanisms and fragmentation. A couple of networks in here I looked up. I didn't see Ripple or XRP or Hedera in here. No Solana's in this one. Ethereum is in here. Avalanche is in here. Tron and BNB are in here as well. But again, it's just interesting seeing, the central bank of central banks putting out documentation on blockchain consensus mechanisms. 7 days until DTCC's subsidiary DTC, the tokenization service, goes live on Canton network, bringing the first live production trades of U.S. Treasury securities on chain. I believe that this is the same integration that you saw Stellar with, that was announced a few months after the fact, but this is going live first on Canton. I don't know if I follow this. No, I'll follow Canton News _org. Give at Canton News _org a follow. Looks like they put together a pretty cool site here, all things Canton. So if you want to learn more about Canton, this is probably where to go and do it. I haven't ran all through this site yet, but it looks like there is a ton on here. So pretty cool site. Quant putting out a couple of tweets before the 4th for tokenized deposits and programmable money. We know how big Quant is in Japan and in the UK in particular. You can go and watch some prior videos there. And then as we close out here, it's a shorter video. I am getting so many scam messages recently. Hold on. When we close out here, this is a one that Hedera posted too. This is a Fortune 500 company. This is Simon Olson. I forget what company Simon is with, but he was head of, he might still be, the membership committee of the Hedera Council. I think Magalu, so one of the biggest consumer packaged goods brands. He puts out a quick video on, or like a 40-second thing on Hedera, though.
So if you're an executive at a Fortune 500 company and you're interested in doing something with distributed ledger technology, which company do you feel secure suggesting to your leadership team? The answer is Hedera. And the reason is, it's that old adage, no one ever got fired for hiring IBM. So due to the signaling value of the amazing companies on our council, I think from an organizational behavior standpoint, executives who realize that their companies now need to adopt DLT are flocking to Hedera because they feel like this is one of the safest bets, one of the safest paths. And I think they're right.
So shout out to Valor from the Genfinity team, because I know he made that short from the interview we did at the end of last year. And then ending out here, MicroStrategy sold 7 times more Bitcoin than reports suggested. They've appeared to reduce their Bitcoin holdings by 3,588 BTC over the past week, a figure significantly larger than earlier market speculation centered on a rumored 491 BTC transfer. Reignited debate over the firm's evolving treasury strategy and whether its longstanding buy and hold approach is shifting. Anyways, I think, I don't have anything against Bitcoin. I just think that at some point in time, and I do think that Bitcoin has utility. I know a lot of people will say that it doesn't. I think from a liquidity standpoint, it's hard to argue with. It's basically dictated the ups and downs of crypto since the inception of crypto. Do I think that that's going to be the case forever? Certainly not. Do I think that $1.2 trillion for all of crypto, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, is a is a non-manipulated number? Certainly not, because I feel like we see the infrastructure coming. BlackRock and all these other entities. Franklin Templeton is a great example. Just doing that interview and them saying, he literally talks about equities markets, hundreds of trillions of dollars, and it's all like none of that's going to be running on Bitcoin as infrastructure. You could argue Ethereum and EVM, but you can also argue networks like Hedera or XRPL or Solana or Avalanche or Canton or any of these other networks. You could argue Quant and Chainlink for interoperability and all the other aspects with Swift, and everything else that's coming is not running in the kind of in the infrastructure stack. Like the Bitcoin has utility from the speculation side and from the liquidity side for sure. And from, I guess, the traditional entities wanting to come into the space from an investment thesis side. But that's just kind of the first thing through the door. Like I think stable coins really opened up. Actually, Chris from Franklin Templeton mentioned this, like, because this is in the news today too, Trump making so much money in crypto. But what he said, excluding the polarizing aspects and left or right viewpoints or anything political, he said that when Trump launched his meme coin, what it did was it kind of had a light bulb moment go off for all of these enterprise and institutional individuals that saw, oh shit, crypto is very real, and the amounts of capital that can be raised and literally instantly, because he raised like billions of dollars instantly. That is impossible to do. Like that doesn't happen excluding crypto, let alone the fact of 24/7, everything else that's involved with it. So the cat's been out of the bag. It's not getting put back in the bag. You can't put the genie back in the bottle at this point in time. It's just kind of a matter of when, not if, these markets do what they should hopefully do. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will talk to you when I talk to you. And I hope you guys all had a great, happy, and safe 4th of July if you're in the States. I think Canada Day was last week as well. So happy Canada Day. And everybody else out there, I hope you guys are doing good. So I'll talk to you. Thanks. Bye.